Devil facial tumours, once the devil gets infected by the disease, it will die. There is no animals that are resistant. We were hoping we may find one, but we have never found an animal that has survived devil facial tumour disease. It is 100% fatal. Quite remarkable. It basically avoids or tolerates the host response, and this is really remarkable in that it's a transmissible cancer, so it's a graft that goes from animal to animal, and somehow it avoids the immune system. So it tolerates the host immune response, which is what good parasites can do. They can get under the host immune system and keep growing. But it doesn't have different life stages. A lot of parasites live in different forms, but devil facial tumour has the one form, that's the tumour cells. And there is no intermediate host. Let's look at malaria. Are there any malaria experts here? Good, there's none. So look at malaria. It's got quite a simple lifespan. It starts out, it can be in humans, it can be in mosquitoes. There's different sorts of phases. There's oocytic phases. There's all different sorts of phases. Very complex life cycle. That's why it's very hard to produce a vaccine or a therapy against it, because of all these different life cycles. Whereas devil facial tumour disease, one simple stage. But with malaria, how is it transmitted to humans? Via a mosquito. A mosquito will have the parasite, it will bite someone and transfer that parasite to the individual. Devils, there's no intermediate host. The intermediate host is basically the tumour cells. And what happens is that some of the tumour cells get on these canine teeth, and devils, they tend to be aggressive to each other. People think devils are very vicious creatures, and we'll soon find out, hopefully, when Andrew brings out the devil, that is quite a peaceful creature. In the wild, we have people that can pick them up, nurse them and bleed them quite happily, but amongst each other, they are quite vicious amongst each other. And they can bite each other, they can grab each other and bite quite seriously. And they have these big fangs here, and they will bite each other over food, but during the mating season, their mating behaviour is quite aggressive, and the males fight the males fight the females, etc. And they'll bite, and what will happen is we've looked at these teeth, and these teeth contain a few cells, and those few cells can be inoculated into a recipient devil. It only takes a few cells, so it's transmitted. So this is a good parasite because this is at intermediate stage, and it uses the teeth rather than a mosquito, and it can go from, so there's no intermediate stages, a very simple life cycle, just keeps dividing. The cells start off one cell, is dividing and dividing and dividing as it goes from devil to devil. There's no intermediate host, but the tumour, which is probably not a good sign for a parasite, the tumour itself could potentially cause extinction of the species. So if it causes extinction of the species, what's going to happen to the parasite? It will also become extinct, the tumour. So this devil can be bitten, bite, that transfer, so it goes straight from one devil to another. There's no intermediate stage, which is what parasites usually do. So there's no intermediate stage. So what about the immune response to DFTD? Parasites have developed very clever ways in which they can circumvent the host immune system. Too many to go through here. Some examples here: Plasmodia, they can sort of vary their antigen coats. Can DFTD tumour cells do that? We'll see. Schistosomes, they basically acquire the host protein, so they coat themselves in the host, so they look like the host. And trypanosomes, they can suppress the immune system. Let's look at DFTD. DFTD tumour cells, we've been looking at the genetics. What's remarkable is that all the genes are present, but we know that some of them aren't turned off. So it's probably turning off important genes that the immune system can't recognise. So it can turn off those genes, which is what parasites can do. Looking at tumours, they do seem to produce some cytokines, TGF-beta, IL-10, which are characteristic of human tumours, which suppress the immune response. So they can produce maybe cytokines to suppress the response. Whether that not is contributing, or in a minor way, we'll never know. And obviously, the tumour cells have the antigens of the host because they belong to the host, so they're coated in the host proteins. So those are all positive aspects of DFTD tumour cells. So do they have antigenic variation? Yes, I don't know. Do they have antigenic variation? They're fairly constant, but they do turn off those tumour antigens. So I'm giving that a yes. Like schistosomes, they acquire, because they're host, obviously they have acquired host antigens, so it makes them a good parasite. Trypanosomes, the evidence for it, but we've never unequivocally proven that the cytokines produced by these tumour cells suppress the immune response. So that's still a question mark, so possibly. If devil facial tumour disease, the tumour cells is a perfect parasite, is there any other examples of a transmissible cancer or transmissible tumours? Well, there is. In dogs, there's a canine transmissible venereal tumour, which is also known as stickosarcoma. This has been around for hundreds of years. Started off in the wolves and moved across to the dog population. This is transmitted on a sexual transmission. It's a tumour. The dogs get infected, but eventually the host immune system will cause the tumour to be rejected. But it is one that's been present in places like Africa, Asia, and even the Northern Territory for quite a while. So it's a transmissible tumour. In a laboratory, researchers were studying Syrian hamsters, the cancers, and they discovered a reticulum cell carcinoma that could be transmitted by mosquito bites. This is just it hasn't been occurred since, but there is an example where it goes from host to host via a mosquito. So it's a true parasite because it's using a mosquito as its intermediate host, whereas DFTD tends not to. And in humans, is there transmissible cancer in humans? There are occasions. Often a transplant, someone had a transplant, has transplanted tumour cells, and the reason why it doesn't get rejected is because in a transplant the recipient has to be suppressed on immunosuppressive drugs. Surgery, there's been occasions where a surgeon's accidentally injected themselves with tumour cells and have to develop that tumour. There has been cases where there's been deliberate transmission of tumour cells in so-called experiments, and of course mother to fetus has occurred, but it doesn't go beyond there. So there are other occasions where cancer can be transmitted from one individual to another. So, is DFTD the perfect parasite? Who was for the 4 case? How many points have you got? How many? 8. 8? That's all right. So 8-4. How many against? 3. Okay, so some of the points that I got. The 4 benefits from the host, smaller than the host, moves between hosts, hides the immune response. What other ones did you get? Can you remember the other points you got? No intermediate host is against. Who was 4? You were 4. Yep. So the against, simple life cycle. So the against you got 100%. So once the species is gone, once the species is gone, the tumour's gone. Another point? And it doesn't have lymphoid life stages, right? Okay, so anyone else got any other points? Right, so what we'll do is we'll have a vote. Do we have questions? Can we have questions? Questions at the end, so you can't ask me questions just yet. So what we'll do is we'll have a vote, right? So think about whether you think that DFTD is a perfect parasite. Have we got some thinking music up there? No. All right, we won't have any thinking music. Have a glass of wine, think about it. Or have a sip of wine, don't drink a whole glass. All right. Okay. Those who think DFTD is a perfect parasite, raise your hands. We had 2, then they looked around, and then we had none. All right. We got 2 for. All right. Those who do not think DFTD is a perfect parasite, raise your hand. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those who think it's not a perfect parasite, why not? It kills the devil. Yeah, parasites kill the host. No different organisms, doesn't have an intermediate host, yep. It kills all the hosts, yep. Any other points? Sorry? The tumour's induced in the host, yeah. It has to be induced somewhere, so it's Not a perfect parasite. Any other points? Okay, so does anyone agree with me that DFTD is sort of like a parasite? No? No? It is a cancer, yeah. The other question, well, is cancer a parasite? Are we all parasites? Maybe. Maybe. What is a parasite? I think there's a 3-day conference. Do you think I should stop before I get into more trouble? Okay. Thank you all, but I'm happy to answer questions. But just to re-emphasise that devil facial tumour disease is a serious problem. We've got researchers throughout the state working really hard on this problem. We're making some advances. We go forward and we go backwards, but it's a problem we're working really hard to resolve. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Greg.